So if you could all rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it serves, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get into our public hearing for this evening, we're going to have our Chief Fred Lute and representative from Suffolk County come up for any comments or concerns with respect to public safety. Just want to remind you, if you have a comment for the public, if you could please come up and use the microphone at the podium. Make sure the button is pushed so the green light is on. We are on YouTube, streaming the meeting live.
So this is Officer Moeller, and Serge, he was on our whiskey team. How many years ago? 5 or 6? Yeah, he was our
Welcome back.
whiskey guys from way
Awesome.
back. So I have just a few things. Again, always stressing the pedestrian safety. It's getting dark earlier now. We have club and student athletes leaving the school late. It's already dark. So just drive very slow, especially downtown. We have great weather right now. Tons of people. Friday, Saturday nights were mob scene down here. Everybody was enjoying themselves. It was very, very well done. But just drive safe, drive slow. Things started to slow down a little bit downtown when we got the cold snap a couple of weeks ago. We had a little rain, but now this week it's been picking up again, so we're good for that. There's always a question on who to call, so just we say this, we said it before. If you have an emergency, call 911. When that's done and you're off the phone, call us. They have a lot more to do, so the likelihood is we're here in the village already. We're going to get to you quick, okay? They might be a bit delayed. So what we'll do is we'll hold down the fort until they show up and take care of that. But you can always call us on code matters, noise complaints, stuff like that. Speaking of phone numbers and who to call, we had someone ask us a couple of months ago about putting the entire phone number on the side of the cars. So this way we have the area code as well, 631. We started that. Half the cars are done, the other half will be done shortly. All right, so that's just, I know the officer has a bunch of stuff to go over here with you, so I'll cut myself short and I'll let
Good evening, everybody. Briefly, I want to go over some of the statistics that we have for the Fort Jefferson Village. A lot less calls to service than last year. That's what we compare to the same time this year to last year. So last year we answered 388 911 calls. This year we only answered about 332. No major incidents. A lot of the harassments, which are high, 13 in comparison to 3 last year. Harassment being people being pushed or somebody smacking somebody, some type of physical contact. Over half of those came from the hospital. So patients perhaps getting physical with staff or whatnot, that's where that came from. We didn't have any overdoses, which is great, last year or this year, so that's great. And unfortunately, we have one fatal motor vehicle accident that was reported during this time period. Our community meeting normally goes on the second Tuesday of every month, but because election day is tomorrow, we're going to hold ours on November 15th. We have the flyer there at 7 p.m. If you have social media, we don't have Facebook for the 6th precinct. We have it for headquarters, but we do have Twitter and Instagram. Both of our channels are there. We post a lot of information that we do on Instagram. For example, we had a Narcan presentation at Access Church Community Center last Thursday. We did, what else did we do up here? Escapes. I'll remember before the night is over. Trust me. Burglary prevention flyer. It's here as well. Lock it or lose it. Please lock your vehicles. We tell everybody. Somebody in another civic meeting told me that it's it makes people feel bad that we're telling them that. However, 50% of the cars that get stolen within the 6th precinct are vehicles that are already running with their keys on it. And that's a problem. And I know it's getting cold, and I know people are going to get their coffee with their 7-Eleven or Starbucks, and you leave your car running. Just know that if you have a key fob to start your car, you don't need that key fob in the vehicle for you to drive the vehicle away. You will need it to restart the vehicle, but not to drive your car away. So please take your keys with you, shut the vehicle off. It's only 2 seconds. Operation Medicine Cabinet, if you have expired medication, not liquid, not syringes, but pills, you can bring them to the precinct and we'll dispose of them properly. Catalytic converter prevention, I have a flyer here for that too. I know that's happening everywhere. Any questions for me? That's great. That's all. Perfect.
Hold on, that's okay. Hold on. Anybody have any concerns or?
I did have one more thing, Mayor. The code officers made a vote, and we're running a food drive that we're dropping off in the next couple of weeks for pre-Thanksgiving next week, and then we're having another one in December for the holidays in December. There's a box downstairs as you come in. We have a box up here. We're also, each man has donated, and we're donating money to Meals on Wheels this year. Last year, we've done it to different places, but we have all the information that'll be coming out as well, so you too can vote, opt to give money to Meals on Wheels. It's a great program. That's it.
Public service.
Cooking event with Access Church. That's what I forgot. So we've had a cooking event with kids at the Access Community Center now. So if you get with Access or follow us on Instagram, you'll see when we post these events.
And just so everyone knows, we did post on the bulletin boards downstairs and the rec center the Narcan event that took place last week. We had it up there for over a week. So.
Any comments, concerns? Anna?
Anna Khazanova, 102 Hawthorne Street. My question goes maybe a little bit to you and more to the Board of Trustees about the pedestrian safety. I remember in a couple of meetings ago, there was mention that the Brook Road is particularly dangerous, especially with the training happening and the kids meeting there. California Avenue continues to be an issue with the stop signs. The cars are just like running through that, especially during the rush hour. I know that from the canvassing that I've done in May and June, and I circle back to the people that I've spoken with at the East Broadway and Old Post Road East, the questions about speed continues to be there. And I understand, I've seen police enforcement at the certain intersections, so I acknowledge that you do a lot of work in that regard. But the question is more to the Board of Trustees. Are you guys considering doing a more village-wide assessment to figure out a way to reduce the speeds or to figure out a traffic calming strategy village-wide to make it more walkability safety, bikeability safety? And as a part of the school bond is coming out where the field will be upgraded one way or another, and despite the effort by the school saying please don't park at the Brook Road, the parking continues there because I walk there and I see that all the time. You can't do anything about it, you as the code or the police, because there's no signs that say don't park there. So it's a really interesting mismatch of problems. Partially you do the enforcement, but the civic part of it also needs to be done. So the question for you is, what is being done on that regard?
I think I heard 4 questions. Brian, I'm going to defer to you on the code for parking on Brook Road, please. And you can relay that information to Clerk Sakovic. You can follow up with Steve Gallagher to see if I have the proper signage on Brook Road, first and foremost, because I know we're going to be setting some public hearings in January for no parking on High Street and Liberty and William. So if we need to add a section of no parking on Brook, please do that. I know Kathy Ann and Rebecca, you guys are working on walkability issues. Can you report on that for Anna?
Sure. So this is going to be part of my report later. Kathy Ann, do you mind if I speak first and you can follow up? Like Chief Luke began with his report speaking about pedestrian safety. This is something that many residents have expressed a desire for. It goes hand in hand with speeding. Looking at these issues throughout the village-wide, and so what I've had some meetings, with Kathy Ann, Kevin, Nicole, our grant writer, and then some folks from groups like Let's Move Long Island. Where we were pointed towards firms who would do a study, a village-wide study, to look at what are the big issues in the village and how in our particular village would we achieve the goals we want to, both with speeding, speed reduction and pedestrian safety, cycling, things like this. So right now we're looking to see the board's palette for advocating ARPA funds for this study. The study, once the village had it, would be used as a great baseline for other grants. So grants to then carry out. It's not necessarily all sidewalks, but if in order to get a sidewalk grant, having a study like this showing, yes, this will calm this area, this will help. Those studies are anywhere between $30,000 and $80,000. And looking at the this ARPA funds spent so far, there's still as of at least October 11th, there was a balance of $272,000.
Rebecca, the only issue with the ARPA funds is that's got to go towards hardscape.
I was told it didn't.
By who?
Our treasurer.
Really? Oh, I'll double check with Denise.
Okay. Anyway.
Just to say thank you, because when you bring up these streets,
and sidewalks.
the officers get notified by me. They generally send out extra patrols, and they do enforce these. The sad part is that most of the people being written are our own village residents.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why I always start off with, slow down.
That's why,
That's so fast that you might hit a kid. And
That's
ruin
why
your
I'm-
life and theirs, so.
That's exactly why I'm addressing the Board of Trustees, because there's only so much that the police officers would be able to do, and there's a need for an engineering solution that actually will force people to figure out a way to calm their speeds.
And I share these with him. He's here, but I'm going to share them with him before he leaves, and I also follow up with an email every month. So anything that you see that appears to be a traffic difficulty, a problem, please let us know at the meeting. We can try to handle that.
So I just want to clarify, Rebecca, are you working with this company to get them out here to look and give us a proposal? Like, where are you at with that?
No, I wouldn't do that before.
Okay, so you're still going to bring something to the board and present it to us to.
If you're requesting that for me,
Yeah, it sounds like
to do that,
that's what you're working on. So I just want to make sure that Anna understands
very good.
that,
Sure. So we would
Hey.
have a company come and do a consultation.
Yeah.
There's more discussion that I think we need to have. When I went to the seminar on how to use ARPA funds, so there's some opportunities there, but there could also be some granting opportunities for the study itself.
Sure.
So I think we need to have some further discussions, but I think to answer your question, we're working on it. It's expensive, so we have to figure out a way to pay for it.
I understand that it would be expensive. The challenge is that I'm not the only one, and the California and Brook Road are not the only two streets that require that. So I appreciate you developing a proposal to look into that.
Great. Thank you.
You had a question back there?
So you have to come to the podium, state your name and address, and speak into the microphone since we're live streaming. Thank you so much.
Marilyn Damascos, 601 Scraggy Hill Road, Port Jeff. And I'm just wondering, I'm also
She gets
here with
ma-
Anna to speak about the walkability study, and just if you can add an addendum to it or be more encompassing to include the traffic out of Mather on Belterre Road, and the traffic downtown where the boarding for the Port Jeff Ferry. I don't know if it could be done as an inclusive part of that study, but it would definitely aid in moving things along in terms of the amount of traffic, the people walking, etc. So it's just a question, can it be added to that study?
Absolutely. Nope. Absolutely.
Okay?
We've also in the past, I know I was in attendance with the mayor, had meetings with the ferry company about that particular location, and that's ongoing. But they're aware of our concerns, and we're working with them.
Perhaps rerouting some of that traffic? Yes, I appreciate
Yep,
it.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, your first name escapes me. I apologize.
Amal Kardzai, 3180 East Broadway.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, kind of in the same line of walkability, and I love the idea of a study, but is it possible that maybe something temporary could occur? Because I have to thank the trustees and the mayor and whomever put up the slow, you painted on East Broadway in both east and west, it does say slow. This may be anecdotal, it seems to help a bit, but then on the other hand, some people seem to be so ticked off that they attempt to break the sound barrier from the stop sign to, okay, why do you need to do this in front of us? But it's happening kind of village-wide, so it's a noise pollution issue, and I just noticed it increasing, and it's horrific. So slowing them down would quiet the noise, but I'm wondering, can we temporarily, because a study, it'll take a while before, I guess you have to approve a study. The study has to occur. If anything actually happens, would it happen way up at where we are, at the top of East Broadway? I don't know, because I'm thinking of the village as a whole, not just the village proper. Could we temporarily do something to narrow the streets? Because once a year, there is the walk,
Mather Walk of Life, or
yeah, there's one of the walks. No, it's for cancer.
the Mather
Yeah,
Breast Cancer Walk for Life. Yeah.
So what happens once a year is that we have some freedom up there, and we can walk safely, and the streets are narrowed early morning, and anybody who wants to pass has to slow down. And I thought, could this occur throughout the year rather than once a year? It doesn't mean you can't use East Broadway. It just means because the streets are narrower, you don't have the right to invert the speed limit. Is that a possibility? Is that something you would discuss or consider? Because the walkability campaign, let's say it happens and you approve everything and you go, you know what, we're going to put sidewalk, we come up with $1 billion and we do this. It won't happen tomorrow. It won't happen next year. We won't see sidewalks or any safety measures for a very long time.
So I can tell you, I've had some discussions with our DPW head, Steve Gallagher, about exactly what you're saying about narrowing the streets at the striping, because it is a a quicker fix than studies and long-term sidewalks, et cetera, and less costly. He has a lot of concerns about the width of the roadway. There is a minimum roadway width that you have to maintain before you start the striping or you get to the curbside. So a lot of our streets are narrow. It would depend on the particular street, but I have opened that discussion with him, and he's going to be looking at the certain streets that we could do that on as a quicker fix, but obviously not every street. There has to be within the width regulations of a street. And then additionally, I always go back to enforcement. I have ongoing and regular conversations with our contacts at Suffolk Police. I add neighborhoods to their patrol lists all the time. So, it can also be a revolving list where if they get to your neighborhood on the list, they go to it. The next day, it's off the list. We can the next day put it right back on the list, and it goes back into that rotation. I'm doing that constantly. I'll get messages from residents that will say, hey, could we have some speed patrol on our street? I'll contact Fred Lute. We'll put the speed sign there in the meantime, but then we ultimately need Suffolk Police there to enforce. And that's always been my go-to, is to contact Suffolk Police, let them know the complaints that we get, the location that we get, exactly what's being told. It goes on that patrol list. So I think that's something we should continue to do.
Yeah, so it's been a few years that we have been doing it that way, and I just thought if there's even a temporary narrowing of the streets until maybe, who knows, we actually get sidewalks,
Right.
then you wouldn't have to continually call the police or
I'm going
ask
to
them
defer to my superintendent of highway.
Yeah.
Because that's why I have a superintendent of highway. I have no idea about the required width of a street, or, there's a split intersection there. So I'm going to get something in writing from him and a recommendation from him as to what can, once and for all, if anything can happen at that intersection. Because I feel like I'm in the same place I was 8 months ago, and we are trying to do what we can do without re-engineering one street. What I mean by that is a public taking of more space on either side to create a calming barrier, or it's not as easy as, we're not traffic engineers, so
No,
I
I
need to rely
realize
on the
that, but I'm
professionals
just
to give
putting it
me
forward.
what's that?
I know that, but I'm just putting it forward as
Right,
an
so
idea.
I'm going to take some initiative right now. I'm going to ask my superintendent of highway to get me something in writing and see if I can get you, and no pun intended, a concrete answer. You're welcome. Chief,
There is also
I got a lot of
very-
stuff tonight.
There's also very common pushback from bike riders because they're already saying the roads are too narrow. Because they need room on the roadway, they can't be on sidewalks, it's not allowed. So now you have a lot more people riding bikes to and from because of the gas prices, et cetera. So they have their, you know, their ideas as far as that too. They don't like the roads narrow. So
I've never spoken to a cyclist who asked
a
for
bunch
wider
of cyclist
roads.
activists right now talking to us about bike rights and such. So that's going to be a
You
common
know,
pushback.
I'm totally for bike rides. I don't ride my bike because of the way things are. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Amal. Any other comments for public safety? Barbara Sabatino?
Barbara Sabatino, 2 Westview Avenue. Matter with their construction. Today I witnessed they're staging open tractor-trailer types of vehicles that have cement, not the round rings, but it kind of looked like an inverted
Catch basin? I'm sorry.
It looked like an inverted act. Whatever it is, that's not the problem. The problem is the northern parking lot where, you know, people would go into the surgical and come out again. So one truck went north of that entrance, and another truck was south of that entrance on the side of Belterre Road waiting to get in. So one of the construction workers comes out and says to the driver, "I'll wave you in," and guided that truck to back up into the parking lot. These regular cars, in their rush to get out of the parking lot, was going around this giant vehicle backing up. And the other vehicle on Belterre Road waiting for their turn to back into this parking lot was a vision problem, but these people just didn't care. So I don't know, I don't think it's your problem. I think that someone needs to talk to the construction company, and even though there was somebody directing the truck into the parking lot, it
Traffic
needs
mitigation.
another
Yeah.
person directing traffic,
Okay.
because there's going to be a disaster
Right.
there.
So, Barb, can you have Rich Harris connect with the, or the GC is, or whoever his contact is at Mather about?
Yeah, if you'd like, I can
Yeah.
also speak to Rich, the chief of safety and security.
Yeah, absolutely, because if that's going to happen at both entrances for this project, they got to be mindful of that. Yep.
Well, that's just it. I'm sure they're getting deliveries all day long, and I'm sure it's not on a time schedule. So I don't think an officer being posted there is the right solution. I think the right solution is to have a construction worker. Yeah. But have another, you know, construction worker, if they're going to guide a truck in, another person needs to be there to direct traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Any else? Public safety concern for Suffolk County Police and/or Chief Lute? Thank you, gentlemen, for working hard, keeping this community safe. And going to move to the public hearing for Section 225, Article 1 of the Village Code to bring the village into conformity with New York State Real Property Tax Law, Section 467, and avoid any future conflicts in our schedule. Could turn the floor over to Attorney Egan. We have our tax assessor, Paul D'Amato, in the back of the room if there's any further questions. This is really just a brush up and a cleanup of a section of code.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the Board of Trustees, members of the public. Thank you, Paul, for making the time to come. You need me there too? Okay.
Booming voice. Egan still needs the microphone.
I feel like my back is to the public, so I feel bad.
You
Part of
turn the
my
podium around if you
back
want.
as I do it. Well,
Yeah, go to the other lectern.
oh, okay. Okay. Now with all that shuffling around, my presentation is not going to be as long as the shuffling just took. But Real Property Tax Law, Section 467, which is amended by the State Assembly, provides for tax exemptions for it sets an income level for a tax exemption for our senior citizens. There's a tax percentage that gets abated. It changes all the year. It's a complicated schedule that says, if you're more than 29,000 but less than 30, you're 30 or more than 31, et cetera, and it graduates up. What happens is that the New York State Assembly, surprise, surprise, doesn't necessarily always change that every year, and then when they do change it, they change it in June in what's called the Big Ugly, in the legislative change at the end of the Albany session. That time is not the same calendar year as our normal tax year. So what happens is that if the board is diligent, it catches it and makes that amendment to the village code to match up that exemption income threshold as it's adjusted by the state. The proposal now is, instead of us having to catch these, which in past years we have not, this was first put in 1970, last amended in 2011. I will guarantee you, Paul, it's been amended a few times since then from Albany, right? So the proposal tonight before the board is to just set it at the maximum income exemption amount as then in effect by the state, so that it takes us out of the coordinate amendment game and puts it just to match us to the highest maximum income for the senior exemption.
It basically says whatever the state level is what we do. We
Correct.
don't have to keep creating our own chart.
Correct.
And this has to do with the senior tax exemption, correct?
Correct, Madam Mayor. What happens essentially in a nutshell...
You want to come up, Paul?
Yeah, come up. Paul D'Amato, for the record, please.
This is the best tax assessor in Suffolk County, by the way. The village is lovely.
Well, at least the best one in the village. What's happening essentially in the real world is right
Paul,
now...
can you please state your name
Oh,
for
I
the
can do
record?
that, sure. Paul D'Amato, D.A., M-A-T-O, and I'm the village assessor. What's happening is right now that currently, if you fall below 37,400, you'll qualify for a 5% reduction. On a series of steps down to 29,000, you get a greater and greater reduction. When you hit 29, you meet the threshold for the full 50% reduction. In any income below, you've got the full 50%. They haven't changed it in many, many years. So in the interest of fairness, the state has now authorized municipalities to change those numbers to whatever they see fit. The village's proposal, as we've said, is going to be to go to the maximum allowed. So now at the income of $38,400 less $1, you will then qualify for the 5%. And you'll reach $50,000, you'll qualify for the full half. So at a $50,000 income and lower, you're going to be 50% exempt. Series of steps, 45, 40, 35, et cetera. At 58, the exemption will end. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
And this applies to anyone 65 and older, correct?
Yes, 65 and older, and it's important to bear
So
in
take
mind.
note. If you have a question, come see Paul. Because I myself would love to qualify. For those of you who happen to qualify, this is Paul. He's here on every Friday.
Right, I'm here Fridays as a part-time assessor. You can reach me during the week if you have to by just calling the office because they have the ability to reach me. So if Friday is not convenient for you, I'll make the time to speak to you during the week. But if you want to see me live, I'm here Monday through Friday. The schedule will go into effect. We are now, if the board approves it this evening, we've held back on releasing the exemption applications we usually send to current recipients, waiting to see what the board will do. If the board adopts it, we will put those applications in the mail. I'll actually leave Kelly a note this evening.
Excellent.
To do that for tomorrow. And then you have to supply them by the 31st. So just get them to us by December 31st. Okay, now bear in mind, income is a different definition with them. Social Security counts, annuities count, is a different schedule of incomes that will apply. So you'll get the application, you'll provide all the documentation, I will then review it. If you're denied, you'll get a letter, you can call me, you can come and see me if you think I made a mistake. And if you're granted, we can tell you exactly what your percentage will be for the coming year. And then you need reapply every year because your income can change every year.
But it's a nice way to save some money.
Any questions?
Barbara Sabatino, 2 Westview Avenue.
Barbara, if you could speak into the microphone, please.
I always knock this over when I... How's that?
Yeah, you can tip it. See, it's like up here, it's flexible. There you go, honey.
No, I need a stool. I
I'll
really
get you one.
My feet don't touch the ground over here.
It's
I
your
need
own private soapbox. How's that?
Would you please go over those numbers again? Would you please tell me what the maximum is that you can earn to qualify for a discount?
Fine. So I actually have a copy of the schedule with me if you have a particular question. But under the new law, as soon as you are $50,000 or less, you'll qualify for the full 50% exemption. If you are $50,001 to $50,999, you'll qualify for a 45% exemption. I'll continue with the whole schedule if you'd like.
No, that's okay. This took a real jump from last year. Wasn't it like 37,000?
It was 37.4, and many of us in the field have wondered how anybody lives on Long Island on less than $37,400. And it dropped down to 29. Below 29, you received the 50%. Now below 50,000, you'll get the 50%, and it will begin for you at 58,400.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Kelly?
Kelly Devine, 119 Jane Avenue. Just curious, how does this affect a household where one person is over 65 and the other person is not?
Right. You're supposed to have at least one person of 65 years of age living there. I would have to check the actual schedule. The bottom line is that if both people have incomes, that is what often disqualifies someone, because you often have a retiree of 65 on a limited income and then a younger spouse working full-time, and that's going to knock you out of the box completely. You'd have to both be retired to meet the income threshold.
So it's the income threshold.
The income threshold is the key because it's a household income.
Household. That's
Yeah.
the operative word, household.
Household is the issue, because we get that question because sometimes somebody's just turned 65 and they apply, but then their spouses say 62, and they just don't work out the numbers. If you had a working spouse and that spouse made, say, $10,000, you might still qualify, but that's almost impossible on Long Island.
Thank you
Any
for
other
the question.
questions? All right, I'm sure something will come to mind after tonight because it's a complicated matter. Don't hesitate to call the office because I'd be happy to take the questions.
Are there any comments or questions from the board?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Any other comments or questions from the general public? Motion to close the public hearing? Motion by trustee Lauk, seconded by trustee Snaden. All in favor? Well, I'm sorry, motion to approve. Trustee Cassay, seconded by, I'll do trustee Shepro at the end. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Thank you,
Mayor.
Paul. Thank you for your hard work. Anything that benefits the residents is a good thing. Conforming with Albany, making sure we don't have to, sorry.
Unless you think you'll need me further, I'm going to go downstairs.
No, I think you're good. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for your attendance tonight.
My pleasure.
I'm going to go with board reports. Going to start all the way down on the left with trustee Cassay.
Thank you, Mayor. Most everything I was reporting on with the walkability study we were discussing before. If ARPA funds, are not usable or not available, I would still advocate for looking at that in the budget next year because it is something that is so helpful and widely desired in so many ways. I did send an email a few weeks ago with some information for the board to review, but please follow up, and I will follow up on the study. Kevin Wood and I did a village walkthrough with Johnson Controls. They are an agency that looks for efficiency and potential for solar in the village, and their whole model is set up to essentially save the village money very quickly. And right now with the federal level tax rebates and money available, it's a appealing thing. So we will look for an assessment, a preliminary assessment from them in the coming month or so. So we had VHB walk through the site of the 6-acre park, and a committee slash staff design charrette has been scheduled for early December to continue working on the specifics of the 6-acre park project. The Port Jefferson Village Community Garden had another great year. They're doing their autumn cleanup this Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Any residents are welcome to join in or just come by and see what the garden is all about. It's there on Beach Street. We had our last program of the year about a month ago, and that was well attended and very, very helpful too for gardeners and residents. The Conservation Advisory Council sent a request to the Planning Board to continue to resume receiving projects from them. Previous trustee Miller would know, as the previous liaison there, the CAC used to receive plans sort of as just a matter of course from the planning board for large projects in the village, but that hasn't been the way for a couple of years now. So they sent an official request asking to be able to see and review those plans from the environmental perspective. The Climate Action Plan Project Advisory Committee met and had a great presentation by Companion Schwarting Architects on previous flood studies that have been done for the village. Their next steps are to research and carry out some community outreach, and that's planned for the coming 6 months. So that committee is working with grant money to look at a comprehensive plan for the village to mitigate flooding from our 3 different main sources of flooding, which is the harbor, stormwater runoff, and groundwater. So very excited to be helping out there. Street trees, I spoke to our DPW superintendent who was looking for a hopefully better way to remove the stumps of dead trees from tree boxes without harming the concrete. So I'm reaching out to New York City Parks, who I imagine has a lot of experience doing that, in hopes of getting some pointers for our local DPW. And that's my report.
Thank you, Rebecca. Trustee Laux, please. Recreation and Port Jeff Country Club
Thank you, Mayor.
and Parks. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a number of announcements from the Parks Department. First off, the repairs have been completed at Rocket Ship Park. The park is fully open. You're going to see a great improvement over there. Additionally, we'll soon be reconditioning all of the walking paths over at the Jean Garant Harborfront Park. I know at times portions of that park is going to will be closed down, perhaps the entire park once we start work, but we will be putting signs up and notifying the residents about that. As you are aware, the East Beach is still closed. It's going to remain closed throughout the entire winter. You can't go down there. The road is blocked off. The construction is really moving along rapidly. Perhaps Mayor Garant will expand upon that, but I was looking at the wall from the tennis courts, looking down on the wall, and it's quite impressive what they've done down there. With regards to the village kayak and vessel racks, the usual date for removal of all vessels is November 1st. But because of this summer-like weather we've been having, we're going to extend that to December 1st. We ask that everyone who has a vessel on a rack, please get them off of there by December 1st this year. The farmers market is still outdoors. It's going to remain outdoors until November 20th. The hours are still from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. The last thing I want to report about the Parks Department is that with the fast approaching holiday seasons and the Dickens Festival, this is the department that makes our village fit those seasons. A lot of credit goes to our Parks Department. Some news from the Country Club. With the weather that we've been having, the club is still extremely busy. The tee sheets are relatively full, and the course is quickly recovering from this past summer's drought. We did have some problems up there with our fairways. However, they're rapidly recovering. There's still time to take advantage of our early bird program. The early bird program, what it actually is any new member that signs up now and pays the present rates for the membership gets to play the rest of this season and all of next season. It's kind of a bonus. You still got quite a few nice days ahead of you, so if you're thinking about joining, now's the time to do it. The course is going to stay open until December 24th, and again, that's weather permitting. Last year, we stayed open right up until the end of December. So if the weather stays nice, we'll do the same thing again this year. I want to remind the members, our present members, that you've got to spend your minimum monies prior to January 1st. Believe it or not, we still have a number of members who have not picked up their minimum cards. We're still holding them. They're paying anywhere from $150 up to $400 for minimums, but they haven't picked up their cards. The membership office has sent out reminders to all of those members. Hopefully they'll come and pick them up and have a nice holiday party with the money. We are presently working on an educational orientation program for all of our members. This will be some sort of see and do video that will take place at home. All of our members are going to be required to participate in this course. It's going to contain information on golf course courtesy, care of the golf course, contain club and golf rules. And as I said, all new and old members are going to be required to take part in this program. Good news, we've hired a new assistant golf professional who comes to us with 20 years of experience. His name is Larry Shortatini. He's got a lot of golfing experience, and we're looking to welcome Larry starting on November 10th. Looking forward to working with him. We are also looking into moving our membership office over to the pro shop. I don't know if this is going to happen or not. It depends on whether we go forward with tennis on the other side of the road in the near future. And speaking of tennis, we still have courts 7 and 8 up at the club open. They're open for play. We will maintain those courts until the end of this month. I have one last announcement. I would like to congratulate our school cross-country teams. The boys team won the Suffolk County Championship this year, and the boys team, along with 4 members of our girls team, are participating in the state championships this coming Saturday. So I wish them lots of luck, and I think they've had a great year. That's my...
Thank you, Stan. Trustee Shepro. Liaison to Recreation.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have much to say tonight. I just wanted to give a few updates about some of the projects I've been sort of leading. One is the communications audit and some outcomes from the recent presentation I provided on October 17th in the business meeting is that now our Economic Development Director, Kevin Wood, is leading the comms team and has initiated the first content development team meeting as an offshoot of that audit. So more to come. Priorities will be established there, and looking forward to some of that activity. The Parks and Recreation Department Committee has had its first meeting. It was a great first meeting after quite a few years without this group or a group of this type convening. I think it was a real get to know you and get to know what recreation and parks is all about. And they had a eye-opening tour of the Village Center and an eye-opening discussion about what kind of programming happens and who works down there in the Village Center and how Parks and Recreation kind of works together. So it was really fact-finding, and our next meeting is scheduled. We'll either have it for the December 1st or December 8th, schedules permitting to accommodate the holiday sort of time frame. The mayor, I'm grateful that the mayor asked me to sort of work with our village historian, the Drowned Meadow Cottage Museum, LISEC, and those 3 organizations to kind of coordinate this new activity that's taking place called a whaleboat building project. It's an historic project led by LISEC, and the village has funded part of that project. The lofting is of that new whaleboat, of that old but new whaleboat to us. It's in the lofting stage in the Village Center, and I encourage everybody to go check it out. It's one of the most interesting things that is happening right now in the village, historically, with a nod to the history of our village and our geographic role and the people who lived here in the 1700s and 1800s in their role with the spy ring during the Revolutionary War. So very interesting stuff. All these little stories sort of are tying together. And I credit Mark Sternberg and Chris Ryan, our historian, with all the hard work they're doing, and the folks on the Whaleboat Committee. It's really fascinating. Rinks is getting ready for skating programming because even though it was like 80 degrees today, they still have to prepare for the ice skating season, and so the skating rink is all set up. If you go down there, you can see that. Obviously, there's no ice, but they are ready to go. And then one update on the food and beverage activity going on up at the Country Club. The Waterview restaurant at the Country Club is open now to the public, the entire community, and it has a great new happy hour menu for those who like to experience that kind of thing. And also it has a brand new dinner menu. So I encourage folks to check that out. It's more on a more reasonable price point, and some of the food selection items are really, really fantastic. And Stan, to add to kind of your report, the turn, which is the halfway house between the 9th hole and the 18th hole, is closed now. So the Waterview is encouraging all members and guests to also come over and enjoy refreshments at the Waterview restaurant. That's my report.
Thank you, Lauren. Deputy Mayor Snaden.
Thank you, Mayor. Continuing with my beautification efforts for the village, we've been working with Rebecca and our Parks Department and Highway Department on the street tree project, running into a few roadblocks, as Rebecca mentioned, about getting the old stumps out. If you are walking around the village, you'll see where the trees are in the sidewalks. It's a very small space, so having those dug out properly without destroying the sidewalk is going to be very challenging, so we have to work on that. Hand in hand with that, I've been working with our local landscaper to source the trees that we are looking at getting, talking to the developer on the Station Street project for the trees that they've been putting in there and variety. Rebecca had gathered a list of varieties as well, so that's ongoing and continuing, and hopefully we'll at least get to replace the dead trees because they're just unsightly, and then moving forward to add more, to kind of add more of an ambiance to walking down the streets, being tree lined and beautiful. Along with that, the holiday decorations you'll see are going up. Our Parks Department has been fabulous about getting those up timely. They should all be ready to go and be turned on the day after Thanksgiving, so keep an eye out for that. And then looking ahead to the springtime, I've already started looking at the different flowers that will be planted come spring in our beautiful beds and gardens and planters around Village Hall and on the streets. The bid and chamber have been doing a lot with the upcoming holiday season. At the last meeting, they spoke about the expandable 14-foot tree that's going to be being brought to the village at the corner of East Broadway and Main Street in front of Rogers Frigate. It's expandable in that they can, every year, they hope to add to it and make it larger, taller, and taller as the years continue. The tree lighting for that event is going to be on November 30th with a rain date of December 1st. That's at 6 p.m. Santa will be there for the children. He will be lighting the tree. The Frigate is supplying candy canes for the kids. Starbucks will be donating hot chocolate. And there'll be a children's choir there as well to add to that event. The children's choir is being brought in by the Chamber of Commerce. Additionally, the bid will be holding their Ice Fest again on January 28th and 29th. Rain date will be the following weekend. So keep an eye out for that. The storefronts will have their ice sculptures. They're hoping for bigger and better main ice sculptures like the castle where the princesses were, and the live carvings will be out and about around the village. Our next board meeting, Roger Rutherford, the president of the Business Improvement District, will be in attendance at our meeting to go over their annual budget. So if anybody has any questions about the Business Improvement District, how they run, and what they spend the money on, I welcome you to our next board meeting in 2 weeks, and he will be there to answer those questions. The Chamber of Commerce came to the bid meeting to discuss a holiday business window display contest to encourage business owners to decorate up their windows from the inside, their window displays for the clothing stores, et cetera, and have an actual contest. Kevin Wood was going to be working on an online voting mechanism for people to vote on the best window, so that should help with the beautification in the village around the holiday season. We look forward to that. In working with the planning board as liaison there, their work continues on the Conifer 2 project. That has also been referred to the ARC at this point as liaison also to the ARC. That was a meeting that we recently had and starting to look at the design of the Conifer 2 project. The ARC is also finished working on the St. Charles Emergency Department expansion, and that will be starting soon. It looks really nice. The ARC did a great job in, tweaking their design and helping it keep within the aesthetic of the current building. The ARC also continues to work on the updated design guidelines. Guidelines would be handed out to any prospective builder or developer, again as a guideline, not as a code, to help them in the process to kind of head off any potential issues moving forward once the project gets to the planning board and the ARC, and also the CAC, so the Conservation Advisory Council, is also going to be adding to that design guideline. So we look forward to working further with them. And then as liaison to the code department, a lot of the public safety was already talked about, but I can just update that we continue our negotiations with the unions to get their contracts settled and move forward with that. And that concludes my report.
I just want to commend the members of the board for your continued hard work. It's obvious that you guys are always working on different areas and really digging in, so I really appreciate that. I hope you guys understand that these are really thorough reports, and these guys are definitely carrying on many meetings a week and doing a lot of homework. Just going to touch base briefly on some major projects. Conifer 1 building is receiving its CO. There'll be a media event. You'll see a little bit of a press release there. Raymond, we promise you that ribbon cutting is going to eventually happen. Station Street was installed. The paving is done. The trees were going into the sidewalk. I know I walked the 6 Acre Park with Rebecca and VHB, and we can see how Station Street now is completed. May line up with Highlands Boulevard when aligned pursuant to the master plan. But Conifer 1 is really shaping up, and Station Street is nearly 100% complete as the new south gateway of the village. In the e-report that's going out, maybe you'll see a little survey about what we think we should name this street. We've been calling it fondly Station Street for, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years while it's been in planning. But now that it's in, maybe you have some suggestions about what this new gateway street should be called. I'm not sure we're comfortable with Station Street, maybe Railroad or something more clever. We'll see. Just trying to make you guys liven up a little bit. You look a little tired out there. East Beach update. GEI is sending updates on the engineered wall that's going in down at East Beach. And yes, Stan, it is a pretty impressive structure that's going on down there. The steel wall is in. The concrete cap is about 100% in. There's a lot of concrete rebar in there, and now they're putting the anchors through the wall and anchoring the wall into the cliffside. It's pretty amazing technology. The project's moving along very nicely. The weather has been fully cooperative. I've had some conference calls this week with the engineer and the contractor, confirming that the plantings will not take place till early spring, even though we're receiving good weather, they are on track. So that project's moving along really nicely. Upland status of the upland assets and projects was on the call again with the engineers and Mr. Terry, and I will be giving the board a more updated presentation at the second meeting in November as we continue to gather the information that we're gathering. But it's becoming a little bit more clear to me what we're dealing with at the top of the hill. Tooker House is in full contract. This is one of the most historic buildings in the town of Brookhaven. The structure still exists on its existing foundation. Assemblyman Engelbrecht has given us nearly $500,000 to purchase, and there will be a lot more money behind it to preserve and renovate. We got a nice congratulatory letter from Supervisor Romaine because they have the Woodhull House in Shoreham, and basically these old structures lie on what was known as Old Kings Highway, which connected the Setaukets to Southold, and are pretty significant in the development of the North Shore and in the day and in the town of Brookhaven. Drown Meadow Cottage Museum, as Lauren reported, is moving along nicely. They will be open as part of the Dickens Festival. The exhibit there with respect to the spiring is remarkable, and I think the project of building the whaleboat will tie in nicely and there are many facets to the story, and each one tells a unique part of the history and how Port Jefferson played its unique role in our history. Also had an updated phone call with the county, the town, the DEC on the Lawrence Aviation project. They are nearing completion of working with all the attorneys on the federal level and the county level to transfer the property from Mr. Cohen as part of a Superfund cleanup to the county. A very complicated process. There was a lot of conversation also about certain projects that are taking place around the Lawrence Aviation project, and maybe the recommendation was to put a moratorium on any further development around the Lawrence Aviation project, because whatever it may happen there seems to be a significant part of making electrification of the rail line possible. They are moving forward also with the solar panel agreement to bring the solar farm there. So Lawrence Aviation is moving forward, and in the hands of Sarah Lansdale, who's the Commissioner of Planning for Suffolk County. That looks good. We are recovering from the cyber attack, the shutdown of the county. It's kind of slowed some things down here that we partner with on the county level. Some of the grants and the projects that we partner with and receive funds from, but hopefully now I think the county's back online. That was not good news for a lot of us, but we've weathered our way through it. And there you have it. That's one of my fun expressions. We're going to open it up to the public for comment. Oh, Dickens. I apologize. 26th Annual Dickens, December 3rd and 4th. I want to really thank Kevin Wood in the back of the room and Charmaine for helping work on the Dickens website and getting sponsorship. This festival is, I think, pretty important to the community and also to the merchants. I mean, we kick off the holiday season. The Parks Department is putting greens up and down the poles already. I mean, it's remarkable what happens in this village in preparation. We want to make sure that when the tourist season dies down, the merchants do survive a long winter here. The festival costs upwards of $35,000 to run, and we were able to do that through the generosity of sponsors. And so I want to thank Kevin for going out there and bringing sponsorship to the next level. Charmaine for helping put everything up on the website, making it possible to become a donor. If somebody owns a business or wants to help sponsor an actor, you can sponsor an actor for $150. I mean, this festival has 130 plus street character actors who volunteer their time and come here and help make this festival happen. The church is open and every venue is open for free, so you can participate and do something that's fun and out of the ordinary. I think it's pretty unique in that it's free for everybody, and it's something you can do and enjoy a day down in the village of Port and help support your local merchant and have some fun, some clean, good old hometown fun. So anyway, Dickens's 26th annual, looking forward to that. And thanks, Barbara, for moving the December board meeting so we can recuperate in a good manner without my leg up broken in 3 different spots. Opening it up to the public for public comment. And Chuck, it's good to see you back in the front row. Make sure you're awake. Okay. Who's Barbara? Come on back up to your soapbox.
Thank you. Okay. Just a quick question about Dickens, because I
Yeah.
was on the website, but I didn't see, are the churches going to be participating full force again? Because last year there wasn't a cookie walk, and I don't think the chocolate.
So the complete, I'm not sure if it's up yet. We just finalized it last Thursday. All the events and venues. We're just crossing T's and dotting I's. I'm not sure it's all the churches, but I want to say it's like 80% of the churches are back up without any restrictions and having the concert. So we have 127 different events scheduled on Saturday and Sunday throughout this village.
Well, that's amazing.
Concerts, string quartets, choirs, the Messiah, the Trains, the Wizard of the North, the Trees. I mean, you name it, it's coming back.
That's wonderful news. Also, part of my ignorance, but the Tucker House, where is the Tucker House?
It's up on Sheep Pasture. It's that zombie house.
Okay, because I've only heard it ever referred to as a zombie house.
Yeah,
I
we're
don't think
we're trying to rebrand it now.
Okay, but did the Tuckers actually live there?
Yes,
They
William
did.
Tucker was one of the first. Well, he was one of the first occupants that we can actually trace back.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bruce, Mr. Miller.
Greetings. Bruce Miller, 109 Scraggy Hill Report. I just wanted to report, Scraggy Hill Road, wanted to report on what I was been doing. I had a substantial call with Sammy Chu. Sammy is the MTA board member for this area. He's a little new to the job, going through a learning curve, but is interested in the North Shore. Had a conversation with Steve Englebright about the Lawrence property and the Long Island Railroad. Everybody wants to see improvements. I'm glad to see we're making progress with Suffolk County. I spoke with Ed Romaine and Jonathan Kornreich Friday, very positive. They had earlier in the day spoken with the Long Island Railroad planners, and I think they essentially got the runaround from the LIRR. They had a Zoom, and so I guess it was an education for Mr. Chu as well. The planners complained about the cost of fixing and widening bridges. So there's a solution for that, and it's move the station west to the Lawrence Aviation property and eliminate the bridges. They kind of, when I spoke with them, they kind of whined about very expensive, and they had a lot of very expensive proposals, but these proposals, they were so grand that I didn't come away with the impression that they were sincere about ever doing anything there. Basically, there's $10 billion on the table for the MTA. The Long Island Railroad spends hundreds of millions of dollars eliminating grade crossings in Nassau County, tens of millions of dollars in fixing bridges. So we can do both of these on the cheap. Again, move the station west. Ed and Jonathan had essentially the same experience conference with the Long Island planners that I did, I believe. The Long Island Railroad needs to put a little thought and planning into the Port Jefferson line. The Long Island Railroad needs to think a little about its communities, and maybe possibly remember that we pay taxes too. There will be lots of development uptown on both sides of the tracks. We're already experiencing this in Port Jefferson. So to eliminate the grade crossing bottleneck would be a very positive project. There's also, as Margot had mentioned, a solar component to the Lawrence Aviation. So again, think about incorporating Lawrence into Port Jefferson Village. This was originally Steve Englebright's idea. It would provide new tax revenue to offset lost LIPA revenue. I was told last time that I presented this here, it was difficult, but I think difficult is part of your responsibility. Again, $10 billion on the table for the MTA, and give some thought when you think the next time we will see $10 billion on the table. Leadership, we have had transportation conferences and energy conferences here in Port Jefferson in the past. Maybe bring the Long Island Railroad planners to Port Jefferson. Maybe bring all the political leaders together. They all favor these kinds of proposals and plans. It's just, you know, not to be too cliche, this herding of cats kind of a thing. We need to get people in the same place, in the same time, and adopt the same objectives. And maybe get some serious answers from the, and commitments from the Long Island Railroad. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Myrna?
Hi, Myrna Gordon, Rustic Road. Hi, everybody. Great reports. I want to just take this time to speak to Stan personally and thank him for all the work that you've done in our village for behalf of recreation, parks, the country club, and most importantly, how much I've always appreciated our working relationship with all of the things and issues that have come up. And I remember standing here many, many years ago talking about pickleball, and Barbara Sabatino raised her hand and she goes, "What's pickleball?" But anyway, we have certainly found out it's become a national sport, basically. And there are many turf wars that are happening with pickleball all over the country, all over in cities and small communities. So I just hope we keep our eyes on the prize in our community and keep the basketball court for basketball and find a good place for home for pickleball. On another end, I want to just talk about Margot in the report this week. It was mentioned that you're going to have informational meetings hosting regarding the country club.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been asking for that for many, many months. Michael and I have stood before this board and spoken about having more outreach, having more transparency on the bluff and everything. So what is going to happen with these open informational meetings as far as you can, whatever you can tell us?
So I'm going to bring the board up to speed at the next meeting, as I reported earlier, because I'm still getting information from the engineers, looking at some of the drainage plans and alternative solutions for the upland project. We just put the upper wall out to bid. The engineer just got back to us with an analysis of the bid, so it's coming together for the board to review with me, and then we'll be setting a date and either making a presentation at the next board meeting or a special town hall, depending on which way the board thinks we need to go.
Yeah. I mean, do you think a tour might be available? I mean,
A tour of
a
what?
tour of the actual site of
You can go up there and look at it right now. It's open.
Right, and we can also walk down the beach and look at it that way also, because it's big. Yeah.
So we'll consider that, because if it's a tour, it probably has to be, you know, there's a construction site ongoing,
Yeah.
and the upland is a little treacherous.
Right, right. And the only reason I say this is because it might give up more people an idea, like you mentioned before, about the good work that's happening up there with it right now and how it's developing. Maybe if more people saw it and could actually get to it and have a safe way of exploring all the issues in person. I mean, I just did the tour at the high school last week. They're giving 3 tours.
Mm-hmm.
They were hosted by the Superintendent Schmatan, and unfortunately, only 10 people were there when I was there on that Saturday, but there were about 6 or 7 school district officials who went with us through the tour. So maybe this is just a better way of having more outreach, more transparency. These are the things that Michael and I asked for many, many months ago. So I'm hoping that you consider it. a little bit more outreach regarding this, perhaps a little bit, maybe something on site that we could all go to see with explanation in a safe way that would not be treacherous.
Take a walk down the driveway.
Oh, all right.
Verna, I like that idea, but and hopefully we can get to that point. In the meantime, on our website is drone video of the work that's going on now.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the website, Kathy Ann, because that was another thing that Michael and I brought up many, many months ago, is that many times people do not use the website. And you gave us the explanation that you have the website, you have the port report, but just in last week's newspaper, there's a lot being talked about now with communication. And one of the things that jumped out with me in that article was the following sentence about the internet. And it was stated that some residents still do not use the internet. The trustee feels that relying upon digital technology is ill-advised. So, you're basically, yeah, so you're basically, yeah. I mean,
Can I see that quote?
Absolutely.
I still will maintain that we do have drone video on the website for those that use the internet. For those that don't use the internet, there is no other way to send you drone footage.
Can I read the whole sentence?
Yes, but you can read the last word too. It also says, and others.
I'm going to read the whole sentence.
Good, okay.
Since some residents still do not use the internet, the trustee feels that relying upon digital technology is ill-advised, as it is an unreliable form of communication for notifying residents about natural disasters, snowstorms, and hurricanes, among others. But I think when you take that sentence as a standalone sentence in the context of that article, there are other means of communication that we would lean on in the event of a hurricane or a snowstorm or another event such as that, which would be the, code red, emergency phone contact, et cetera, et cetera. So you, in context, you never rely on one form of communication as your sole source of communication. You want to reach into your toolbox and use whatever the best is for the median. So to Kathy Ann's point, where else would a drone video live? But not for the website.
Right.
So we're not saying go to the website for everything, but it's still a major resource.
Right, but I think we could work and do better in that situation,
and
in
as
everything.
I said, we will.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Myrna. Pat. Just making sure I do this full sweep of the room.
Stay awake. Pat Zimmerman, 175 Windward Court, Southport, Jefferson. I just have a quick question. When they do open East Beach, which I can't wait for them to do that, on the path that goes down to the beach itself, you put up those beautiful retaining walls.
The road, you mean, not the path.
Correct.
The road.
on down road going down
Yeah.
to the ocean. On the left-hand side, you have those beautiful planters that just grows weeds. Is there some way you could plant something there to beautify that area too? Could that be included somewhere along
Yeah.
the line?
Yes, and
It
that
grows
was
the best weeds, but
it
I'd like to see
does.
something prettier.
Yes, it's the maintenance of those is an issue, and the deer are an issue. So I did address that.
Hostas, you put them in the ground and you leave them
The who?
forever. Hostas.
Lavender.
The deer
The
love the
lavender, yeah.
hostas. So the lavender, it's a possibility. That's what we did speak about with Dave from Parks. Yes, it's on the list. It's significant. There's a lot of space there. The cost was going to be great in that the soil that's in those is old, needs to be replaced. The manpower to take everything out of there would be great. So yes, it's on the list, but
Okay.
Sounds
we're
like
working on it. Maybe a good volunteer project, or maybe it could be an adopt a planter. There's different
not a
options
bad
that we were
idea.
speaking about, whether, it be fundraising through our conservancy. There's options, so yes, it's on the list, and it's just not an easy fix.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And just to add on to that, I know Trustee Sneeden and I had talking about that, and you hear all these other fires that we're putting out now. But something that might do very well there is our native plants like beach plum and Rose virginiana, things that will really establish themselves and not require different soil because they're adapted already to the soil that's there. They don't require watering, and the deer don't eat them. So looking at a mix of those are beautiful plants. They flower in the springtime and throughout the year, but just looking to see what is sustainable for that site and is not going to cause huge maintenance issues, because I know I wouldn't want to be rappelling down there weeding.
Oh, I can see that happening. Come on. Kelly?
Kelly Devine, 119 Jane, thank you. In listening to the discussion about the walkability study and about the bid and the recreation work, two things really quickly. I don't know if it's still operational, but the Bloomberg Foundation had a grant program to paint intersections, because painting them in beautiful kinds of ways visually slowed down people, and they would pay for that. So I don't know if it's still operational, but I can look for a link and send it to you if you'd like, because that again would be a paid for, quick kind of immediate thing. And then in thinking about the bid and all the recreation aspects that we have all over the village, and kind of connecting them in a walkability and bikeability way. I was just thinking about, other ways to reach or to interest people in supporting these kinds of studies. And I remembered in 2019, the Chamber had somehow lured Melissa and Doug's Toys to have their corporate retreat in Port Jeff. And I looked up this article. It's in the Times-Beacon Record. And they lured over 400 employees, not a single car, because of the walkability of coming from Connecticut to the ferry, and and now we're going to be doing all of this renovation, revitalization of Upper Port. And what a great way to tie, to think about this study as a way to try and tie in all the wonderful amenities that we have, and make sure that they can be gotten to easily. And then I lied, one last thing. In that map, we walk a lot. We love this area for its walkability, for its friendliness, and for its great community. There are, at least kind of in walking distance of where we live on Jane, there are two kinds of, I don't know if this is the technical word, but like easements, where it's a pedestrian area that cuts through, but not necessarily a car, in the President section and in the Poet section. And there might be some other opportunities to look for ways to really safely network people together, and kids would love that too. So thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Very constructive comment. Anna?
Ana Jaizano, 102. I just wanted to piggyback on the question of planters and the native plants. There are quite a lot of resources on the native plants that are actually really gorgeous, and that they're not just annual, but perennial, that wouldn't require watering or wouldn't require continuous maintenance. That would be really good, especially for the beach sites, but also around the neighborhood. There's around the village, because it would be great for us to be as the on the forefront of promoting sustainable development and sustainable regreening of the areas, because I would be actually really curious to see how much it costs us to plant all of the non-native annuals that we plant every year, versus actually having to put a perennial that is native, that doesn't require a lot of maintenance, and that is beautiful.
Appreciate that. Motion to close the public hearing at public session at 7:20, and motion by Garant, second by Sneeden. All in favor? Aye. Motion to close the meeting at 7:20. seconded, and all in favor? Same